For today, we're going to be focusing on our inner thighs. So when we are ready, we'll find any easy seat of our choosing, and as always, give yourself that extra time to do a little readjusting. Notice what feels good for the knees today, what feels good for the back. Elevate the hips if you want to with a blanket or whatever you would like. And we'll take a moment to let the eyes close. And we'll take just a few moments with the stillness. Today might be a day that we start off that stillness with a little bit of a sigh. Just a little reset button breath where we take that breath in and sigh it out. But we'll take a moment and just notice. Now, as we are noticing, is it possible to be the mind observing the mind? Can we not identify with the thoughts as if ourselves and our thoughts are one and the same? But can we take that step back and be like the moviegoer watching a show in a theater? Can we see these thoughts essentially projected onto a screen? We can see them, we can hear them. If they are loud enough, we can even feel them. But we're not in that movie. Just doing your best to practice that observation. And then maybe we bring ourselves, or bring that attention to our breath. And maybe today we start by focusing on how it feels to breathe. How does it feel to take that breath in? How does it feel to take that breath out? We can focus on the main things at first. Can we notice how the ribs move? Can we notice how it feels to fill our lungs with air? And how it feels as they empty out? But can we notice our shoulders? Can we notice how our shoulders feel as we take that breath in? And that breath out? Can we notice what happens with our hands as we breathe in and as we breathe out? Can we notice the breath itself as it leaves our nose or our mouth? Can we notice the weight on our sit bones? Does it shift as we breathe in and as we breathe out? Can we notice our forehead? And can we notice just what naturally happens as we breathe in and as we breathe out? Now, if we'd like, we'll continue this observation. Maybe we notice other parts of the body, maybe ones I haven't mentioned yet, or maybe we repeat the ones that I did mention. Again, make that time your own. Just noticing without any predictions what happens as we breathe in, what happens as we breathe out. Can this get 3 more breaths? When we're ready, we'll let our hands come together at the heart. And as always, we can just take a moment to set that positive intention. And maybe what we do is we just remind ourselves of a trait that we know we have. Maybe sometimes we are in doubt of having that particular trait. Maybe it is patience. Maybe it is resilience, assertiveness, strength, balance. And perhaps today we just repeat that word to ourselves as a reminder that this is a trait we have. And if anything, we can use yoga as a chance to bring it to the forefront and build from it. And then we can take in the inhale that works for us. And then the exhale could rest our hands against our legs. And always mindful the eyes could stay closed for as long or as little as we need. And maybe we start with our shoulder rolls. So we could roll the shoulders up to the ears and eventually relax them back down. So as we do so, I want you to find the breathing pattern that will best help guide that movement. Do we like to imagine that inhales bring the shoulders up and exhales bring them down? And notice what we personally need, and really do your best to think of this as a breath-centered movement. The breath is what brought my shoulders up and what brought my shoulders down. Maybe a few more shrugs like this. And when we are ready, we'll slowly let those shoulders relax down for a moment. Now, if it works for us, we'll do our shoulder drops. We're going to bring our shoulders straight up to the ears, pausing here for a moment if we can. And on our exhale, we'll let them drop. Now, if we like, we'll do this a few more times. We'll bring our shoulders straight up to the ears. And then using any exhale of our choosing, it might even be an audible sigh, we'll let them drop. And we'll pause if we can. Just take a breath in. Take that breath out. And one more time, we'll bring our shoulders up. We'll pause. On the exhale of our choosing, we'll let them drop. We'll pause again. We'll take a breath in. We'll take that breath out. Now, if we like, we'll just do some gentle neck rolls. If we want to pause and do neck stretches at the end of this, I fully recommend and fully advise you and encourage you to hit pause on the video. So when we're ready, we can just take a moment, get tall through our neck. We'll let that right ear find its way towards the right shoulder, and then maybe we gently let our head come down and then over to the other side. Now we're just going to repeat this pattern if we can. Great time to check in. Some people like to do this nice big rolling sensation. Others might find that they want to draw more like a letter L, or more or less like we're drawing a letter T with the chin, where we come up to center, come down, come up, and then come to the side. Now, if this feels good, we are welcome to draw letter Ds with the top of our head. So we're not going to do a full roll around because we don't want to hurt our neck as we roll our head back. But we're going to roll to one side. We come up, we come all the way to the other side, and then we roll the head down. So we can imagine if we had a marker on the top of our head, we'd be drawing this sideways letter D, where the curved part is when we roll the head down, and then the straight part is when we bob side to side. If this feels good, we're welcome to look to the ceiling as we draw that straight part of that letter D. It creates a nice little up and over arch in the neck without overdoing anything. Now, if we're drawing these circles, we'll just go in the opposite direction. And we'll just start to wind down from this. Again, make sure this movement is your own. If we find we're getting dizzy, that's okay. Make sure you give yourself a break. Maybe do something a little more stationary. And then when we're ready, we'll come back to center. And maybe it just feels good to shake the head out a little bit. If we want to shoulder shrug, we can shoulder shrug. We'll find our way into our tabletop position. And so as always, make that transition your own. Also take as much time as you need to get from one part to the other. And we'll just do a few of our torso circles. We're going to let our torso shift to one side. We'll let our hips circle down and around and towards the other side. As always, just make this time your own. If you prefer more of that zigzag pattern or that figure eight pattern, we can. If this does not feel good for the knees, we can keep the hips behind the knees or draw letter C's or even that letter D here, only drawing that line, that straight line behind the knees. We'll go in the opposite direction if that feels good. And we'll wind down from this nice and slow. End on whatever it is you want to end on. Now, when we are ready, we'll find a few of our cat-cow movements. Now, we're welcome to drop the belly down, and maybe as we're here, decide if we want to inhale or exhale for this particular pose. And then we'll do the inverse as we round our back. And that will repeat. So whatever breath as the belly drops, and then the inverse as the back rounds. And I invite you to continue this now at your own pace. And again, really just notice what you need here. Also noticing if you tend to be the kind of person who almost does a little push-up as they're rounding their back, and then, or as they're arching their back, and then as they round the back, they straighten the arms. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but just checking in. Sometimes our body tries to compensate for lack of movement through the back by making movement happen in other limbs. So if we are consciously adding in a little micro push-up, that's okay. If we're doing it because our body wants to avoid the lack of mobility in our back, just check in with that. And we're gonna wind down if we can. Nice and slow, we're gonna end on whatever it is we wanna end on today. And once we're ready, we'll come back to that more neutral spine, back to our table. As always, if we need a moment for the wrists, this is our chance to shake them out. As always, if at any point in our practice we need a break for the wrists, we do so. We want to remember, we want to be kind to the wrists, especially when they're bearing weight on them. They are not designed like our feet, so we gotta stay intelligent about putting weight in them. When we're ready, we're gonna take our left knee, we'll let our left knee come out to the side. We're gonna circle it out in one direction if we can. I'm gonna circle it out in the opposite direction if we can. Now when we are ready, we'll straighten our leg out, maybe even let it hover for a moment, and then we'll lightly plant it down, pausing here if we can. We'll do a few of our balancing tables from this position. We can take that left arm, so it's the same arm as the leg that's out. We'll bring it up towards the ceiling. Now when we're ready, we'll bring that arm underneath us and we just reach for the opposite wall. We'll do this a few more times so we can inhale as we come back up and reach. And we'll exhale and twist and reach. And then we'll inhale and we'll come back up. And we'll exhale, twist, and reach. One more time in full, so we're gonna come back up and we'll exhale to twist. We're welcome to reach the arms straight up one last time, but then we'll bring the arms straight down and we're gonna take a moment to explore stretch. So this is pretty open-ended. Some people might stay exactly where they are. Some like to come down onto their forearms. Some people like to keep the hips where they are. Some like to let the hips shift back. Now we can stay where we are and play with lifting up the toes to the ceiling and then plant them back down, little leg rotation. We can also do a little hip movement, do a little cat-cow. Possibilities are endless. We might even like to shift back and then walk our hands towards that straight leg, away from the leg. Maybe we like to add in that twist. We're gonna make this our own, and then we're gonna give it 3 more deep breaths. Now, when we are ready, we can come back to our tabletop position. So we'll bring that knee in. Now, it is okay if there's a little ache in the inner leg. That is normal. We might need a little moment here, a little shift side to side. Maybe it feels good to round the back and then drop the belly, whatever we need. We'll try it on the other side when we are ready. We'll take that right knee out to the side. We'll circle it out in one direction. We'll circle in the opposite direction. Now when we are ready, we'll extend that leg out for a moment, maybe even let it hover, and lightly we'll plant it down. Now if we're ready, we'll find our way into those twisting tables. We'll inhale that right arm to the ceiling. Now when we're ready, we'll bring it underneath us, reach towards the left. And on our inhale, we can come back up and reach. And on our exhale, we can twist and reach. And on the inhale, we'll come up. And on the exhale, one last time, we'll find that twist. And on an inhale, one more time, we come up. But then that arm can come down, and again, we'll explore stretch. So notice what you want to do. Do we like upright? Do we like on our elbows? Do we want to shift our hips towards the heels? Do we like to play with that leg rotation, having the toes point up, then point back down? Do we like that hip movement, cat-cow? We might notice, if we're exploring stretch, that these little changes what we're feeling in the muscles. And that is because we're focusing on slightly different muscles with each variation. As I'm always keen on saying, it's not about this universal right or wrong way to do the pose, but what do you need to focus on? What's going to work best for you? Now we're going to give this 3 more breaths if we can. If we are ready, we'll come back up. We'll let that leg come in, and again, we might need a moment here. Shaking out the wrists, moving the hips, whatever's going to serve. When we're ready, we'll find our way into the child's pose of our choosing. And now mindful, sometimes child's pose could be stacking the forearms, resting our forehead against that. Maybe that's what feels best for us today. Maybe it feels better to have our hands by our feet, or hands on our back. Make this time your own. What version of child's pose is going to serve best? This might even be a moment to remember that our resting pose is our own, not only in terms of what type of resting pose works best, but when we come into it. If at any point and for any reason we need to come to resting pose, we honor that. Now, when we are ready, we'll find our way into our first downward facing dog. So we're welcome to come back up. We can readjust our hands, readjust our feet. We can curl the toes to shift back and up. And just give yourself a moment with that if you can. Notice what feels good. Do we want to pedal out our heels today? Do we like to put a lot of weight into one foot, kind of hang out there for a moment? Today might be a day that we're focusing on our hips. Maybe we can think about our hips lifting to the ceiling, but also traveling lightly towards the back of the room. Maybe we're pressing through our hands. Maybe we feel our shoulders by our ears. This is literally one of the only times having our shoulders by our ears is a good thing. And again, just notice what we need here. Maybe a little press of the belly to the spine. Maybe we're letting those ribs knit together, especially if you're like me and let your ribs flare out a lot. We're going to try our best to breathe in and try our best to breathe out. And when we're ready, we'll find our way into our forward fold. So maybe we like to walk our feet to the hands or hands to the feet. Combination thereof, as always, make this time your own. If you like to be near a table and like to use the table to help come out of the pose and then find our forward fold, we may. Again, what props do you have around you? What items that you feel might help you? So whatever forward fold we find here, it might just feel good to shake out the head. It might feel good to nod out the head. We're going to try our best to breathe in. We're going to try our best to breathe out. In any type of forward fold, just focus on what feels good today. We're not worried about touching toes or folding in half. One more deep breath in. One more deep breath out. Now when we're ready, we'll come up to stand. Maybe we press through the feet as we lift up and overhead. We'll let our arms find their way to the heart. We'll pause if it's possible. We're going to take that moment to breathe in. And that moment to breathe out. Now we're going to find our chair pose. And perhaps for today, if we typically don't do hips width distance, maybe we explore that for today. So we're going to do our best to think about our feet being underneath our hips. If you are like me, you have to be careful not to confuse the outside of our hips with actual hip sockets. Because for some of us, a little bit wider out here than it is right here. So we're thinking hips with distance. Toes are doing their best to point straight ahead. Now when we're ready, we'll shift back and down. We're going to try our best to let our knees point straight ahead as well. Now we're welcome to keep the arms down if that feels good. We're welcome to reach the arms up if we would prefer. But today I really want that focus to be on those knees pointing in the same direction as the toes. When our inner thighs are a little stronger and perhaps a little less mobile than our outer thighs, they pull those knees together, and that's really tough for our knees, especially for the ligaments in the knee joint. So we're doing our best to let those knees point straight ahead. It's okay if it's a challenge. I'm a little knock-kneed myself, so I have to be very conscious about keeping those knees straight ahead. We're going to try our best to breathe in and breathe out. One more breath. We're going to take a deep inhale, and on the exhale, we'll find our forward fold. We'll readjust, we'll come down, and we'll just do whatever we need. So maybe it just feels good to sway a little bit. Maybe it just feels good to shake the head out. Whatever we need here, we'll try our best to breathe in, and we'll try our best to breathe out. Now, when we are ready, we'll come up to stand. We'll press through our feet. We'll let those arms reach up and overhead, and eventually we'll let our hands find their way towards the heart. And we'll try our best to pause here. Maybe notice that heartbeat for a moment. And no expectations, no predictions. What happens as we breathe in? What happens as we breathe out? Now, as we're ready, we'll do a little balance play before finding our way into our warrior two. Now we can meet closer towards the front of our mat, or at least make sure we have space to step back. We'll put weight into our left leg first. We'll let that right leg lift up. Now today might be a day we keep the toes down or play with toe taps. We can also roll out the ankle if that feels good. We can also do light knee swings, a little side to side. And really whatever we need here. Whatever feels good, we're going to do it one more breath. And then we'll find warrior two. We'll step back, heel organically spiral to the ground. We've opened up. We adjust as we need to. I always like to say organically spirals to the ground. Some people, it's going to be that lovely 90-degree pivot. For other people, it's going to be closer more to 45. Hopefully nobody is pulling out their compasses and protractors to tell you how your foot should be. But we are going to do our best to think about that knee pointing in the same direction as the toes. Again, we're trying to help strengthen those outer thigh muscles. That's actually part of the two-part process of helping our inner thighs, which for most of us, again, are a little overactive, a little tighter. We not only want to stretch the inner thigh, we want to strengthen the outer thigh. We have to have both. Now, when we're ready, we're going to just give this another full breath in. Full breath out. Again, we're trying our best. Knees straight ahead. I know this is challenging. I know it's tiring. One more breath. And we'll find triangles. We'll let our front leg straighten. We're trying our best not to let that leg lock out. We'll reach forward. We'll gently cartwheel down. And perhaps today we even err on the side of height. We stay a little higher than usual. We can play maybe with a gentle press of the belly into the spine, or even a light spiral of our chest as if the heart is now trying to point out something on the ceiling across the room from us. Now, if we prefer, we're welcome to lower down more, but really checking in at what point do we prioritize lowering down over what the pose and its current variation can give us. We're not going to get an extra bit of yogic points just because our hand can touch the ground, especially if that came at the cost of what we need, what the inner thigh needs, what the hamstrings need, what feels good in the torso. Again, how does the pose feel? So we're going to try our best to breathe in and try our best to breathe out. One more breath. Now as we're ready, we're going to press through those feet to help come back up, and we'll come up and back reverse triangle. So with reverse triangle, checking in, if we put so much weight into our back leg that the back leg buckles, bring yourself back. Think lift through the ribs, up and back, like that top arm is just trying to reach for something on the ceiling that's a little bit behind us. And we want to think stretch through the torso, not how low we can get this bottom hand. Full breath in if possible. Full breath out. Now when we're ready, we'll come back up. We're going to find our way into goddess pose. We're going to pivot that back heel in. We'll let the front toes turn in a little bit. Toes are pointing out, and as we sink the hips, knees are pointing in the same direction as well. In fact, we might even try to think those outsides of our knees are trying to travel to the wall behind us. Maybe we bring out our fierce goddess arms. Again, this pose is challenging. This pose is tough, I know, but there are benefits to it. Can we press that belly in? Can we keep our shoulders over the hips? Notice if we're trying to pitch forward, that's our body trying to compensate, trying to get out of doing the work. We're gonna try our best to breathe in. Try our best to breathe out. One more full breath. And then we'll stand up. We'll let our feet pivot straight ahead. Now we might need to readjust the feet. That's okay. We are going to try our best to think feet are straight ahead. Notice if they're still turning out, bring the feet in. We want to get that outside calf muscle, that muscle that I tend to get very fanatical about. And when we're ready, we'll find our forward fold. Now we can always do the variation with soft knees, and we just lightly walk the hands down. The other option we can always do is think, press belly to the spine, tilt hips forward. And however far we go is however far we go. Again, I want you to make this time your own. Would it feel good to sway a little bit side to side? Would it feel good to walk the hands over to one foot, come back to center, and walk the hands over to the other foot? And really, whatever we need. See what happens as we take our breath in. See what happens as we take our breath out. We are eventually going to make our way back into a standing position, which as always, we're going to get there however we want to. We might play with the pivot into high lunge. So if you've ever taken my classes and played with the pivot into runner's lunge, but found that's really not for you, this is a great alternative. So we're going to come up when we're ready. We're going to press through the feet and come up. Now, if we don't want to do this transition, or if it doesn't work for the hips, we're welcome to meet in standing. If we're ready, we're going to soften our knees. We're going to take our front foot, we're going to let it pivot straight ahead. We're going to let our back heel pop up and just notice how this feels. Notice how high lunge feels. Now we can step to the top of our mat. So again, we can shake things out. And again, no worries if we had to skip that. Not everyone's hips like to rotate that way, and that's okay if yours don't do that right now or ever. Now if we're ready, we'll try it on the other side. Now we're putting weight into that right leg. Press that right foot down as we lift up our left leg. Again, make this time your own. Do you like to toe tap? Do you like to circle out the ankle? Do you like to do those knee swings? Whatever you need. You can even think, what movement would I have to do in order to get out of balance? And sometimes that might even help us. This is not about maintaining perfect balance, but being curious about what happens when we disturb that balance. Now, when we are ready, we're going to bring ourselves into that warrior two. So we're going to step back, heel organically spun down, we've opened out, we've adjusted as we need to. And again, we're going to try our best to think knees pointing straight ahead. When I first started yoga, this was one of the hardest things for me to focus on because I had such weak outer thighs and strong inner thighs. That knee would always collapse in, but that was no good for my knee, so I'm doing my best to keep my knee pointing straight ahead. Just a little extra focus on that knee. And again, this pose is a challenge and sensation is cumulative. It is okay if it gets harder with time. Notice the difficulty and then notice if you can breathe in. Notice if you can breathe out. Full inhale if possible. Full exhale, one more breath. And we'll straighten that front leg. So again, we can reach forward, we can gently cartwheel down, but we might be staying pretty high up, pressing belly to the spine, and thinking about our heart now, trying to point out something on the ceiling that's a little bit away from us. If we prefer, we're welcome to lower down more, but really checking in. Again, we don't want to think about this pose in terms of what it looks like, but what it feels like. Our goals should not be resting in our hands and in our feet, but in our back, our torso, our hips. And by that, I mean we're noticing the sensations as we move through those parts of the body. We don't think about the hand trying to meet the foot or the feet trying to do X, Y, and Z. We're thinking about our torso. We're just doing our best to breathe in, doing our best to breathe out. One more full breath. As we're ready, we'll press through the feet to come up, and we'll come up and back, reverse triangle. And just give yourself a few moments here. Just finding a stretch that feels good on that right side of the body. That's all that matters right now. Feeling that inhale. Feeling that exhale. Now when we're ready, we'll come up. We're going to find our way into our goddess pose. So again, we can pivot our front foot in. We can readjust that back heel, or we'll bring that back heel in. We'll readjust the front foot. We'll settle in. Now as we're ready, we think tailbone got heavy. Knees are pointing in the same direction. And if we'd like, maybe today, or at least for this one, we keep our hands on our hips. We're going to put a little weight into one side and then shift back and put weight into the other side and just kind of go back and forth. If this doesn't work for the knees, please do not do it. Make sure you're listening to your body. But if this works for us, just a little back and forth movement. Now, if we'd like, we're welcome to come back to center. We do not have to add this in, but if it feels good, maybe we can press through the balls of our feet so much the heels actually lift off the mat. Mindfully, we'll come down. Maybe we even let our tailbone sink just a little bit more. I know this is challenging. Can you give this one more breath? Then we'll come up. We'll let our feet pivot straight ahead. We're going to find that forward fold. We'll come forward in whatever way feels good for us here. Now, if we would like, we can do whatever we need. This is a chance to add in movement if movement feels good. If we want to add in some side lunges, what we might do is we might bend one knee and then come back to center, and then bend the other knee and come back to center. Now again, we're going to try our best to think knees are pointing in the same direction as the toes. If at a certain point we feel like we need to turn the feet out in order for that to happen, allow that turnout to happen. Protect your knees. Some people like to move their hands with these side lunges, so maybe as they're bending that left knee, they walked over to the left, and as they bent the right knee, they came over to the right. But we can also do the inverse. Maybe I've walked over to the right side as I bend my left knee, and then I rock over to the left side as I bend my right. We're going to give this a few more breaths and make this time your own. Now I want you to choose which side you want to end on. Is today a day we need to double up on one side, or would we prefer to make sure we end on the opposite side? Whatever we need. Now when we are ready, we'll come up to stand again. We'll press through our feet, we'll lift up. As always, if we want to just come back towards seated or our standing position, we can. If we want to play around with that front or that high lunge, we'll take our front foot, pivot the heel in. We'll let our hips square off as that back heel pops up. We might need to readjust the feet to do that. Notice how that high lunge feels. And then from here, we'll step that back leg in. Might need to shake things out a little bit. And we'll take a moment in our mountain pose. We can let our palms rotate forward or away. We'll close our eyes for a moment. And we'll take a moment to breathe. Now, if we we can, maybe we can come back to that word we repeated to ourselves at the very beginning of class. It's okay if we've already forgotten it. It's okay if we didn't set an intention at all. We are welcome to pick a new one if we want to. And has there been anything about today's practice that kind of showcased that particular trait? And again, we want to try our best to keep that in a positive light. So if balance was our word, we don't want to think, well, I tried to balance and I fell out. But maybe I was able to challenge my balance and I got stronger. Or I am able to stay on one leg for longer than I thought I could. And then maybe we are ready to try our balancing pose. So if our eyes are closed, we're welcome to open them up again. As always, we don't have to do our balancing pose away from anything that could help us with our balance. We're welcome to get closer to a wall or stable furniture. There's so much going on with our balancing poses that we don't have to focus on the balance if that's not going to serve. When we're ready, we're going to find our version of tree pose. We're going to put weight into our left leg, and we want to try our best to think soft knees. We don't want the knees to lock out. That seems easy in the short term, but it's worse for us in the long term, both for our knee health and for our balance. So soft knees, putting weight into that left foot as that right heel lifts. Now it might be heel and ankle meeting, might be foot and calf muscle meeting, or foot behind the knee, or we're doing that kind of ballerina's pose where we're pointing our toes. We just don't want to put the weight onto the knee itself. That's really not healthy for it. Again, that sideways pressure, your LCLs will appreciate that. Now, if we want higher, we're welcome to go higher just for this particular class. I'm not going to demo that. And then whatever we need here, maybe the arms stay low, maybe they sway, maybe the hands are at the heart. Now, as we're here, notice if you can find that breath. Notice what happens as we breathe in. As we breathe out, notice what happens as we're getting challenged. If the balance is getting challenged, if our leg is getting tired, can we still breathe? Deep inhale, deep exhale. One more breath. Now if we can, as mindfully as we can, we place that foot down, but can we pause? Can we notice that left leg? Notice how right leg feels. Can we just notice not only the different sensations between left and right, but the evolving sensations on that left side? How does it feel now versus how it felt when we were in the pose? And then maybe we shake it out. Now when we're ready, we try it on the other side. Weight can go into our left leg or our right leg. I'm gonna press that right leg down. We're gonna lift up. Now maybe we have our heel and ankle meeting. Maybe it is foot and calf muscle. Maybe it's foot behind the knee. Maybe we're doing that ballerina point. Maybe it's higher than that. But again, make this pose your own. Now, especially if we're on our dominant side right now, we might be noticing it's a little more challenging to find our balance. Now, it's okay if we need to sway. This is a great time to remind ourselves that actual trees in the forest have to sway with the wind. If they try to stay perfect and upright and rigid and don't move, they tend to snap in half. So that's a thing that we want to remember, that we really don't want to be rigid about our poses, not just tree pose, but any pose. It's okay to find fluidity. Maybe that keeps us from snapping in half. Again, we're just giving this a few more breaths. I know it's challenging. We're just trying our best here. One more breath. Now when we're ready, that leg can come down, and can we pause? Can we notice right leg? Can we notice left? Can we notice not only the different sensations, but the evolving sensations? I personally love to focus in on my calf muscles that usually kind of cramp up a little bit during any balancing pose, and notice that that sensation is already starting to dissipate. Again, just a nice reminder of how temporary these sensations are, even when our mind is registering them as forever sensations, and we have to get out of it. Now, if we are ready, we might find our flow back to down dog. So if we're ready, we could find our way closer towards the front of the mat. We don't have to be exactly there. We'll inhale up, and we can exhale down. We'll inhale, halfway lift. And we'll exhale and plant our hands, and we can step our feet back, finding that down dog. And again, we're just going to give ourselves a moment here. And that could mean more pedaling out of the heels. Maybe it feels good to really bend the knees and then straighten them out. Again, what will serve here? Full breath in if possible, and full breath out. One more breath. Now, if we are ready, we'll find our way into our child's pose again. We'll let the knees come down. We'll shift back, and then back and down. And we'll take a moment here. We'll try our best to breathe in. Try our best to breathe out. Any version of child's pose, maybe we've stacked the forearms for this, whatever we need. Full breath in. And full breath out. Now, if we are ready, we'll meet in our tabletop position one more time. And from here, we'll find threading the needle. Now, if we prefer to lower our head onto a pillow or a block or something elevated, make sure you have that handy. Now, when we are ready, we can take our right arm up towards the ceiling. And we'll let that right arm go underneath us, reaching for the wall, but this time we lower all the way down. So noticing if we can lower all the way down. If we find ourselves hovering, we can see if we can lower down. Maybe we can put something underneath us like some pillows or blankets. If that doesn't work, we come out, we do the kneeling variation where we hug the arm to the body. And make this time your own. If we have our arm on the ground, can we relax the fingers in our right hand? Can we relax the arm itself? Now, if we're hugging our arm, can we think about that right shoulder and relax that right shoulder down? So again, we're just going to take a few moments here, whatever variation we found. We'll do our best to breathe in. We'll do our best to breathe out. One more full breath. And then we come out of whatever variation we found. So if we're on our table, we can come out. Some might like to reach that arm up again. We don't have to. We lower down. Maybe we need to shake things out a little bit. We try it on the other side. Now the opposite arm can reach up. Now we can twist and reach for the wall. We can lower ourselves down. We'll pause here. Again, whatever version, maybe we like that hugging the arm across the body variation. And again, we're going to do our best to think about relaxing. If we're in the tabletop version, can the arm, the shoulder, and the side of my head, can all of those relax down? If I'm in the kneeling variation, can I relax my left shoulder down? We're just going to give this a few more breaths if possible. Can we notice what can at least start to soften? Full breath in if we can. And full breath out. Now when we're ready, we can come out of it. So if we're in a kneeling variation, that means we uncross the arms. If we're in a tabletop position, we come up. Maybe we like to reach that arm again, maybe not. Again, whatever we need here. Do we want to shake out the arms, do cat-cow, do some kneeling cat-cows. Again, what do we need? And then we'll all meet in a seated position. We'll make that transition our own. Take as much time as you need. We might extend the legs for a moment, and it might just feel good to shake them out or move the feet. And then we're going to play with some wide-legged stretches. So again, how wide is up to us? Some days we're not really going to want to widen out our legs that much. Others, we might find that it feels really good to get them as wide as possible. If we find there's further for us to explore, we're welcome to essentially take one hand in front of us, one hand behind us, do a light scooch forward. But again, only if we find there's more for us to explore. If we did that and immediately our toes caved inwards, Scooch yourself back. Do not go so far that your body is trying to compensate and avoid the stretch entirely. Now we might find we just want to stay in this position. We're getting plenty of stretch. We don't have to go further. If we would like to do a little tilting forward, we may. Now maybe it feels good to walk ourselves out only as far as it feels right. Now I personally love to use blocks here. I love to put a block on its medium setting in front of me, and then I place my forearms down. I kind of just hang out for a little bit. You can play around with some muscle activation if you would like. Sometimes it's nice to squeeze those quad muscles, those tops of the thighs. Maybe it feels good to squeeze the glutes a little bit. Notice what that does. Again, our body is this amazing pulley system. This is why we have to strengthen the outside muscles as we lengthen out the inside muscles. We have both that we need to worry about because one side does affect the other. Now we'll start to wind down. We're going to notice if this can get another full breath in and a full breath out. Now if we can, we'll bring our torso up. Maybe we can keep the legs where they are. We'll find our side bends. Now we're welcome to place our left hand on the left leg or even to the side of us. You make that your own. We'll reach up, maybe up and overhead, whether we're pointing in the same direction as our foot is or it's a little more sideways. Again, make this time your own, what feels good. We're going to try our best to breathe in. And out. One more full breath. Now we're welcome to come up. We'll find our side bend in the opposite direction. We can always reach up, maybe up and overhead. Again, whatever we need here, just try your best to breathe in. And try your best to breathe out. 2 more breaths. When we're ready, we can come back up. Maybe we add in a light twist. We're going to get tall, deep breath in. On the exhale, let the sternum do that twisting, let the ribcage do the twisting. Hands just come along for the ride. Again, we're trying our best to think tall through the body. Our hands can be down like kickstands, but if we find ourselves leaning into those hands, maybe we bring the floor to us with some blocks or a stack of sturdy books. Now, if we're ready, we'll come back to center and we'll try it in the opposite direction. Now, when we are ready, we'll come back to center again, and maybe we do our tilting forward now. So again, maybe we found something elevated. We have our forearms against it. We might also have a large pillow for us to rest our forearms on. Make that time your own. We're going to give this 5 deep breaths if possible. Now, when we are ready, we'll come up. We'll let our legs come back together. Now, we might place our hands underneath the knees to bend the knees first, slowly bringing them to center. It's okay if they're a little achy. Now, we might do some legs movement in order to help out with that. Now, we're welcome to bring our arms behind us, and we make this time our own. So some like to let the knees just go side to side as the hips stay glued to the ground. Others like to let the hips roll with them. Another option is to play with the roll and pivot, where we roll to one side and then that top hip pivots away. It comes back. We roll to the other side. New top hip pivots away, and then we come back. And that just adds in a little extra movement for the back. Again, we don't have to do this. We could glue the knees and feet together, and that becomes almost more of a glute rollout if our glute muscles need a little extra TLC. Another option is to have our feet relatively wide and just let the knees knock into center, especially if we tend to get SI joint pain, which is around the tailbone area. Sometimes this feels a lot better or gives us relief. So whatever we need, we're just going to wind down nice and slow, whatever we need. And eventually we'll make our way into our laying down position. So we're welcome to walk back or hold on to the knees and roll back. That might feel good to hug the knees and rock a little bit side to side. It might feel good to hold on to the knees and do circles with the knees. Now, if it feels good, we're finding any twist of our choosing towards the right. Again, make that time your own. Today might be a day that we keep the knees or keep the hips glued to the mat. We just let the knees knock over. Or maybe today is more of a stack the knees or stagger them as we find our twist. Likewise, arms might stay by the body. Arms might come out for the letter T, or we do those cactus arms for our rotator cuffs. Again, what do we need? We're going to give this 3 more breaths. Now, if we're ready, we'll come back to center. We'll find any twist of our choosing in the opposite direction. And adjust as we want to adjust. We're not beholden to any of these poses. If we come into it and it doesn't feel right, we come out. Now, can we give this 3 more breaths? When we are ready, we'll come back up and maybe we hug the knees in, we rock a little side to side. Now we do not have to do the next pose because it's truly not for everybody. If we would like to come into a version of Happy Baby, we are welcome to place our hands on the shins, on the ankles, the feet, the toes. We might even prefer to wrap our peace fingers around our big toes. And we make this our own. We might like to keep the knees really bent and then just wing them out to the side like we're in a sideways supine bound angle. Maybe we like to straighten out both legs only as far as they can go before the back rounds. If the back is rounding, that's our body trying to compensate, so ease back. Now, if we are playing with straightening out both legs and our back is rounding regardless, let's bring our hands down to our shins then instead. That's just going to help reduce strain on the back. Now we're welcome to rock side to side. We're welcome to bend one knee and straighten out the other. Again, what do we need here? Again, this pose isn't for everybody. We're more than welcome to say, you know what, this isn't going to serve me, and then we do something different. That's the beautiful thing about our yoga practice. Deeply individual. One more full breath in if we can. One more full breath out. Now when we are ready, we're welcome to let go. We can bring our feet down. Now maybe we'd like to do a little windshield wiper knees here, a little side to side, or we can let the feet go wide, let the knees knock into center, anything we need here. And then eventually we'll make our way into the resting pose of our choosing. But always mindful that if we need a little extra time to wind down our practice, we may. If there's any last poses that we would like to do, consider this the next minute of our practice as a chance to go freestyle. This is our chance to make sure we're adding in any last poses that help our practice feel well-rounded or just help us wind down. Again, at least in this class, Shavasana is any pose that we can rest in with little to no muscle engagement. So we can lay on our backs, our sides. If we even prefer to lay on our stomachs, that's perfectly fine. There's been a few times I've taken yoga classes, being on my back felt too vulnerable, and so I had the practice on my stomach instead. But again, really make this time your own, and if you need more of a Shavasana than this particular class gives, please hit pause, set a timer on your phone, give yourself that extra time. I'm going to play my singing bowls for the next few minutes. Eventually we will let them fade into silence, and from there I will ring my chimes and guide us back into our easy seat. And as always, what we do between now and then is entirely within our power. You're welcome to take that full breath in and full breath out. If we'd like, perhaps we take a moment to visualize resting next to whatever spot brings us serenity. Maybe it's a place we've been to or a place we'd like to go to. And as we start to move our body again, can we think about how we would move our body if we started to wake up in that super serene spot, that nice and slow movement, Maybe adding in some stretch if stretch feels good. And just nice and slow, we'll add on. As always, we do not have to go at the same pace as my cues. We'll meet in our easy seat whenever we are ready. And once we are there, maybe we let our eyes stay closed for just a little while longer as we let our hands come together at the heart. And perhaps for today's moment of gratitude, we come back to that intention one more time. And is there anything involving that word that we are grateful for? And then whatever meaning of namaste resonates. And perhaps today it is the strength within me recognizes and honors the strength that is within you. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your practice. Namaste.